Ladies and gentlemen, fellow members of Phi Beta Kappa, honored guests. I'm Dr. Jordanna Sprayberry. I'm the current chapter president of the Pi chapter of Phi Beta Kappa at Muhlenberg College. This ceremony is to honor those who, having qualified for election to the Pi chapter of this society, now wish to be admitted to its privileges and undertake its responsibilities. In a ceremony that goes back to the time of the 2020 COVID pandemic, we will nod to centuries-old traditions and introduce modern practices as we welcome our new members into Phi Beta Kappa. Phi Beta Kappa was founded as a secret society on December 5th, 1776, by a group of young men who were studying at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. This society was intended to be both intellectual and social in purpose. The President's greeting to new members in 1779 reads in part, "Here, you are to indulge in matters of speculation, that freedom of inquiry that ever dispels the clouds of falsehood by the radiant sunshine of truth." In their clandestine meetings, the members seriously debated a host of questions such as whether a wise state hath any interest nearer at heart than the education of the youth. A little over a century later, more than 25 branches of the society were in existence. The United Chapters of Phi Beta Kappa was founded in 1883 to establish unity across these scattered sister organizations and has its headquarters today in Washington, D.C. The society now has over 500,000 living members, elected over the years by the 270 chapters at colleges and universities throughout the country. In addition, more than 50 local alumni associations lend the society their support and provide members an opportunity for a lifelong relationship with Phi Beta Kappa and its activities and goals on the community level. Founded at a slave-owning college, Phi Beta Kappa's roots are steeped in systemic injustice and racism. 100 years later, after the Civil War, Phi Beta Kappa elected its first black members, including George Washington Henderson, inducted in 1876, William Scott Montgomery, 1878, Wiley Lane in 1876, James Major Colson in 1883, and Alexander Edward Boucher in 1884. Women first joined the ranks of Phi Beta Kappa in 1875, and the first African-American woman, Marionette Anderson, was elected to membership in 1899. Over a century later, Phi Beta Kappa still struggles to diversify its ranks. In acknowledgement of that, the National Society included a special initiative to advance diversity and inclusion in its most recent strategic plan, released in 2018. The Pi chapter of Muhlenberg would also like to acknowledge that we can do more to further this initiative, which will be our first order of business in the fall semester. But today we are here to celebrate your accomplishments, which connect to the most laudable aspects of Phi Beta Kappa's history, eloquently summarized in the following statement by one of the Society's most eminent members, Charles Evan Hughes, the late Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The particular interest of Phi Beta Kappa is in liberal education. Intensive critical study of educational aims and methods has found nothing to take its place. It means the development by careful training of the capacity to appreciate what has been done and thought, the ability to make worthwhile appraisals of achievements, doctrines, theories, proposal. It is liberal because it emancipates. It signifies freedom from the tyranny of ignorance and from, what is worse, the dominion of folly. Phi Beta Kappa holds aloft the old banner of scholarship, and to the students who have turned aside from the easier paths and by their talent and fidelity have proved themselves to be worthy, it gives the fitting recognition of a special distinction.
Whenever I'm asked to talk about or to think about the liberal arts college experience, I always come back to a friend of mine from undergraduate school. She was a physicist and a really particularly brilliant physicist, and she decided to pick up a degree in music alongside, because she was a liberal arts college student, and she became a composer, and she went on to grad school in composition, and then at the end of graduate school she stopped doing that and she became a financial analyst. And that's not at all the trajectory that people imagine, right? They're going to go into a field that has nothing to do with either of their undergraduate majors. But when I asked Hannah about it, I said, was that a hard transition for you? She was like, no. I think about data sets all day, and there is no data set like a Mahler symphony. And part of what this tells you is that my friend Hannah is funny. Like, that's a really quality joke if you're a music person, because Mahler's Eighth Symphony is known as the Symphony of 1,000, and it lasts an hour and a half, and so it's a massive data set. But part of what's most interesting to me here is that Hannah was really thinking about, what is it that I got out of my education? It's intellectual flexibility, and it's intellectual independence. And so, like, no music person who hasn't also done something else would talk about a symphony as a data set. But Hannah's ability to kind of make the connection that what I have to do is to think broadly and deeply about a big, complex thing, and I have to draw conclusions about it. That ability is, I think, a uniquely liberal arts thing that she's able to do. And so what I want to say to all of you who are seniors is that regardless of whether what comes next for you is what you imagine that you will do based on where you've been, or something entirely different, something you couldn't have anticipated, the thing to know is that that capacity that we have in the liberal arts for intellectual flexibility and intellectual independence, that's what sustains you in your career and in your lives. And that's why you will always be glad that you had this experience that taught you to think about things in a really different way from other students.
Hi, I'm Will Gryc, Associate Professor of Mathematics here at Muhlenberg College. To me, what is special about the liberal arts is that it values many different ways of knowing. No one academic discipline holds all the answers, and a liberal arts education cultivates an open-mindedness to unfamiliar theoretical frameworks, facilitates connections between academic areas, and celebrates the entire plurality of human knowledge. Perhaps most importantly, a liberal arts education instills the valuable metacognitive skill of being able to learn something new that is outside of your expertise. Congratulations.
Being elected to Phi Beta Kappa means that you've demonstrated excellence as a liberal arts scholar. But what does that mean, and why is it important? For me, one of the most important things about a liberal arts education is that it teaches you that the world operates in contextual truths rather than absolute truths. Over your time here, you've learned that information does not have a straight right or wrong. It doesn't have an easy answer. And in fact, the most interesting questions require the most work to understand the context that they operate in. And in our society today, with global connections that cross complex economic boundaries, physical boundaries, and cultural boundaries, what you've learned here at Muhlenberg is so important. So as you move forward, remember what you've learned here and take it with you, along with our good wishes.
Each year, the Pi chapter of Phi Beta Kappa at Muhlenberg College awards two $250 scholarships to incoming college students intended to help pay for the books that they have to purchase in their first semester. They're awarded to students from schools locally here in Allentown, one at Gryc High School and the other at William Allen. The students who are awarded are selected based on their excellent academic record, their intent to pursue a liberal arts degree at a 4-year college, and their status as first-generation college students. For us as a chapter, the goal of this award is to foster and to recognize the kinds of students that we think represent the future of Phi Beta Kappa. We're so delighted this year that we can award these grants to Haya Zucchini from Gryc High School and to Alberto Morales Valencia from Allen High School. Congratulations and the very best of luck in your academic future.
Candidates for election. Over your time at Muhlenberg, you have demonstrated a commitment to the principles of learning that this society holds in high esteem and that we desperately need in our society today. Consequently, you have been selected to join the ranks of Phi Beta Kappa. The esteemed individuals being inducted today are Alice Banta, Monique Beaupre, Rachel Bernstein, Desiree Basales, Maggie Capone, Heather Chapman, Danielle Costanzo, Gabriella Crivelli, Alyssa Curtis, Heather Downey, Meray Faragalla, Sarah Flash, Lane Flores, Olivia Garcia, Taylor Garrison, Nisha Godbole, Sophia Gordon, Vivian Ha, Kevin Hagan, Rashida Hay, Kylee Jacoby, Kaylee Jamison, Patrick Cantor, Benjamin Katz, Ji Koo, Maya Lachinsky, Jona Lieberman, Kendall Logan, Kiva Mark, Julia Nikolai, Christina Oblashuk, Ann Palma, Nicole Reindl, Kayla Robinson, Haley Roos, Jennifer Sanchez, Michelle Sanchez, Laura Santo, Jordan Schneider, Gabriella Solomon, Elijah Summer, Michael Sova, Lilyanna Stange, Olivia Toner, Jacob Waba, and last but not least, Elise Miwa. Although Phi Beta Kappa ceased to be a secret society over 150 years ago, tradition has preserved two secret signs, which are shared with initiates. When members met, they greeted each other by drawing the backs of the index and middle fingers of the right hand across the lips from left to right, thus apparently affirming that their lips were sealed. This likewise affirmed that they were not, in fact, particularly sneaky. They followed this sign with a handshake, one of the traditional forms of which is shaking hands with only the thumb, index, and middle fingers. The society symbols and purposes are now unsurprisingly well known across the land. We regret that we cannot teach you the handshake in person, but we do celebrate you from afar. You have worked hard and should be proud of your accomplishments. Welcome to the Pi chapter of Phi Beta Kappa.